Do you want to know how to teach coping skills to a child? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, education, child development, all through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about coping skills. In this video, we're going to talk about the usefulness of coping skills and what type of coping skills you can use in an internal way, not just an external way. And we're going to talk about how coping skills can be used or are part of the teaching self-government parenting approach. Coping skills are part of having self-government. Each person needs to know how to self-regulate themselves. What is my plan for controlling myself and regulating myself? Years ago, I had a problem. This is when I was a young child. I had a problem with lying. And I really hurt some relationships because of that. And I realized as a child that I needed to come up with a strategy for how to fix that lying problem. So I came up with a skill set for myself called controlling the impulse to lie, because it really had gotten to the point where it was just an impulsive thing that I did. I didn't even always think through it anymore. And so I needed to figure out how to rein that in and control it. I had to handle those situations by learning a skill. That started me on the road to self-government, learning skills so that I could manage any problem that I had within myself. Now, I know that there are some people who have some very difficult things that have happened in their lifetimes. Maybe they've had situations where they've been abused. There have been relationships that have been strained. So maybe there's real trauma, maybe there's perceived trauma. So we'll say trauma with a capital T and trauma with a lowercase t, because really, real trauma is the capital, okay? But I know that people have hard things that they go through, and sometimes there's things that remind us of those things. And so these are moments where we feel like, oh no, the trauma is returning, I need to cope. Or maybe somebody else around you is doing something that makes life difficult for you, and then you think, okay, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to cope with this? Well, basically it comes back to having a plan, doesn't it? A self-governed person makes a plan and they follow through on that plan. And how beneficial would it be if your plan included a skill that you could use so that you could be prepared at any time that you might feel like you need to cope with a certain feeling or a certain situation that is coming up. One of the worst things that we could do as a culture is tell a person that the best way to handle their situation is to give in to all of their anxieties, give in to all their fears and doubts and everything, and that that's the right way to cope, because that's not coping. That's being in bondage. I know a lot of people think, well, the way I cope is, with my social anxiety is I just don't be social and I just go into my phone. That's not coping, really. You're distracting yourself. You're telling yourself that if you do this other thing by going to your phone, that then you'll be okay. So you've turned something that doesn't really solve the problem into your perceived solution for the problem. That's not a healthy coping mechanism. So if we could be clear, there are healthy coping mechanisms and then there are unhealthy coping mechanisms. And we need to point ourselves in the direction of freedom, right? So that means that we need to have healthy coping strategies for dealing with trauma, dealing with hardship, frustration, anxiety, whatever it is that we might be dealing with, because we're all very different, we need to have a plan. So why was I lying when I was young? Well, because I wanted to sound cool, I wanted to fit in, I wanted to get out of trouble, those types of things. So I had developed lying as my way to cope with seeking popularity and solving some of my problems. This was an unhealthy way to cope with that scenario. What I needed to do instead was I needed a skill for how to tell the truth even when it was hard. And first, before I could even go to that place of the skill, I had to change my mind. I had to tell myself that telling the truth was freedom, not bondage. Because I had told myself before that the lie was freedom and that the truth could lead to bondage. I needed to flip-flop that in my head first so that I could give myself permission to develop an entirely new skill. The same goes for any situation that we might feel like that we need a coping mechanism for. Now, I'm going to encourage you to develop a coping strategy that is mostly internal coping and maybe somewhat external coping. So for my lying strategy, for instance, I decided that if ever I felt that impulse to lie, that I would take a little step back. We're talking tiny, micro step backward. And then I would ask myself the question, is this the truth? And if the answer was yes, I would take a little mini step forward and then I would say exactly what the truth was. So the majority of the work was done inside my head. Only the little tiny step back and the step forward gave me direction about what to do next. So while sometimes external coping mechanisms are beneficial, we want to be careful not to assume our external environment needs to be in just the right place for us to cope. Do you see how that could sabotage our future success? So what we need to do is prepare for our internal coping. Now, there's a whole branch of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. This branch of therapy helps prepare a person's brain on the inside to be able to question, challenge, and cope, and give themselves direction to move on to a new plan. Teaching self-government is very much in alignment with cognitive behavioral therapy because it is all about making a plan for yourself, analyzing what's going on, and then following through with your plan or adjusting as need might be. And doing it all in a way of calmness where you're not taking it personal, where you're just recognizing that this is a method for solving a problem. It's not something that you need to get emotionally attached to. When a person is preparing to have a coping mechanism, say for being calm when they don't feel calm, then this is what they could do. This is what I did. When I was taking in therapeutic treatment care children who were often very violent, out of control, I realized I needed to stay calm all the time. So you know what I did? I made myself a skill. And the skill was recognize that there is some sort of chaos that is going on, that I feel like I might not be able to be calm in this circumstance. And then guess what? Take a little back step. I tell myself stop as I'm taking a back step, tiny, tiny step. And then I say, am I calm? Doesn't this sound just like the skill for the honesty, controlling the impulse to lie? And then if the answer is yes, I take a little mini step forward and then I use my skills. But if the answer is no, then I follow through with my calm plan. So I developed a calm plan for myself so that I had a method for how to get calm. My calm plan involved going to my bedroom or another private place, saying a prayer, singing a song, and planning out exactly which words I wanted to do, and doing it all within 5 minutes. Then I would come back and do the correction with the person. If I needed to remove myself to my calm spot, my room, then I would say to the person, I'm going to go and get calm, and I will come back and we'll handle this. And then I would go get calm. Then they knew, ooh, she's going to get calm. I better get calm too. And sometimes I might even tell them, you should get calm too. And then we'll talk about this. Then I would come back and I would have that type of communication. We can do that same sort of thing with literally everything. But do you notice what's going on in my head? I'm asking myself a question instead of making an emphatic statement, a judgment, or some sort of an excuse. I'm questioning, I'm challenging, and I'm directing myself toward a pre-planned approach. So, what types of things can you use for a pre-planned approach? Well, if you've already subscribed to this channel, then you know I love skills, and those 4 basic skills of self-government are the perfect starting place. Teach your children how to follow instructions, accept no answers and criticism, accept consequences, and disagree appropriately. There are other videos on this channel that are about those skills, so I'm not going to go into great detail about the skills here because I know you can find them in other places, especially in the video called The Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success. But once you teach your children the 4 basic skills for success, those children will now be prepared with understanding of a skill set. And if there's some other thing you have to cope with, you can use those same formulas as a framework for helping the child. And if I'm really honest with you, I would have to say that those 4 basic skills take care of 99% of the behaviors that you will ever encounter. And I have tried them with the hardest youth that my state had to offer as a therapeutic treatment care parent. And so I know that those 4 basic skills will probably be almost all that you will need to help with those feelings of anxiety, with those feelings like I need to cope, I need to do something, because now the person has a means to self-direct. Now, another thing that you need to make sure that you do when you're helping a person with their coping strategies is make sure that they know the plan for how to get calm. There are some calming strategies that I teach parents how to teach their children in my TSG parenting course, which is on my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, that will help a person go from not calm to calm. And these calming strategies are very beneficial for engaging the prefrontal cortex. When a person feels like they need to cope with something, it's because they're in the wrong part of their brain. So helping them do something like the rule of 3, following through with a calm plan, doing some of those self-regulation things are really going to be beneficial at bringing them to the front brain so that they now feel like they're empowered enough to solve their problem. Self-government is a freedom for the world. That's what this channel is all about. There's so many principles and skills of self-government that we could discuss here on this channel, but I recommend going to the Not So Known Secret for Parenting Success Next. That will give you a really great brief overview of some of the things that can be beneficial for you as you're helping your children and yourself maybe cope with some of the challenges in life.